I'm Eric from Lonesome Reader, and so this is, of course,
Anna from A Case of Books.
Get your energy up, girl.
I feel like it's more peppy than you usually are, but
I know.
I can run with that. I just wasn't expecting it.
Hello and welcome to the Anna and Eric Book Club. I'm Eric from Lonesome Reader, and this is
Anna from A Case of Books.
Hooray! We're very excited about doing our first book club discussion and meeting about this. If you didn't see before, Anna posted on her YouTube channel an introduction to the book club and why we're doing this. And I just want to do a sort of clarification of what, because I've had a few people asking about like why have you chosen all these books and put them together? And really, they're just our personal favorites and picks that we've decided to group together, like the great tradition of Oprah in America and Richard and Judy in the UK. These are books we love and want to share with other people and get talking about with other people and think everyone would enjoy.
It's 8 books that are out in paperback that are recent releases that we loved.
Yeah.
That's the theme.
That's the theme. And even though I think these two books that we've these two books that we've picked for this session do have sort of common themes in that they're both about immigration and talking about identity, and there'll be themes to talk about, but yeah, that's more just coincidental in that. How we're going to structure this discussion is we're just going to go through, give brief summaries of each of the books in case you haven't read them, so you can have a little bit of insight into what they're about, and then we'll talk about our personal reactions to them and also some of the reactions from the community. We've been so excited to see all these people posting about the books that we want to discuss, across all social media, on Twitter and Goodreads and Instagram and on YouTube, and all the comments you've left. It's been really exciting seeing people get involved in talking about the books, these books that we love. I'll go through some of the reactions of that people have had, so we can make it a sort of more of a discussion and banter on other people in the reading community of how you've got on with the books.
So, first book is Ninefold to Make a Paper Swan.
Paper Swan.
Not Purple Swan, by Ruth Gilligan. So this is a story about, immigration and identity. It's about being Jewish in Ireland or in different places. And it basically follows 3 narratives set in one that kicks off in 1901, one in the 1950s, and one in essentially the present day, 2013. And it's about 3 lives that, I think it's too much of a spoiler to say, end up having links between them. And the way that sort of ideas of identity, specifically to do with religion, kind of build and create identities that are both sort of personal and national and family. And
there's definite thematic links between the stories where there's sort of symbolism which sort of resonates throughout, and also images, and the way that stories are passed down, specifically centered around the Jewish experience, that are passed down through the generations and how they resonate differently in each generation.
And that's something I really loved about it. I'm basically a sucker for stories about stories, and I find it very hard not to love novels that are sort of thinking about that.
So there's been a lot of great reactions to this book online from different people, and some positive and some negative reactions, which is really good actually to see a mixed discussion, because that's what makes the book club interesting, is having different opinions. So we had Mercy's over at Mercy's Bookish Musings, her YouTube channel. She talked about this book specifically and reading it, and how she thought it was expertly written. The way she uses words, structures, the topics of the novel, but she didn't care about the characters, and it was interesting watching her try to grapple with understanding why she didn't connect with these characters on a personal level. And I think that's sort of the danger with a novel like this, which has 3 definite different strands of stories. As a reader, you end up usually caring about one of the stories more than the other.
It's always a risk, isn't it? And I think it's hard to write a book like that and make sure that the readers are not sort of chomping at the bit to get back to another story. Did you have a favourite sort of thread? Was the one that you did find that you kept wanting to go back to?
I think I did sort of feel that and I think a lot of other people felt this way, judging by people's reactions, is just that I was much more drawn to Ruth's story, which is the oldest story that starts in 1900, where basically she and her family traveling from Eastern Europe, wanting to go to America, and they get off the ship thinking they're in America, but they're in Ireland, and they just stay in Ireland, which is sort of like a funny beginning, or sort of like, but also like tragic beginning, because they're like, they're stuck in a place that they didn't think that they were going to be at. Yeah, and I really connected with her story, and like particularly the character of her father, who is this playwright, and seeing his like professional disappointment where he like was trying to get his plays produced, and yeah, I just like really connected with that and her story and her struggle. You follow her story over a number of decades, so I think it's interesting seeing, you could see her development a lot more, where the other stories in the books, they're sort of, they take place over a shorter time period, so I think you see less development of the characters. Although it was interesting, one of the reactions to the book from Rachel Morrow, who did a review of the book alongside her cat Layla, her very cute cat, was sitting on the side. But she described Ruth's story. She didn't really like Ruth's story that much, and she described it in a funny way where she said she felt like it was too little butter spread over too much bread, because it takes place over this long period of time. So she felt like there wasn't enough. But personally, I really connected with Ruth's story.
I had a similar experience to Rachel.
Okay.
I preferred Aisling was my favourite, and then probably Shem. And I did feel like with Ruth, I almost wanted a whole novel just about Ruth.
Right, yeah.
And I almost found it frustrating, because I did want to know, but I almost found it frustrating to get it in because it was such a long period of time. I kind of had the opposite experience, and because we just got these little snapshots, I did enjoy reading them, but I sort of connected with the kind of intensity of Shem and Aisling's story, I think, more, because it was a much shorter window. I sort of was more, I guess, intellectually engaged with Ruth's story. I really enjoyed all the stuff about the stories and the history of storytelling and the way that was woven through her family. But I emotionally connected the most with Aisling. So that's an interesting one, because I wouldn't say it's to do with it being like a more modern story either, because I love historical fiction.
Yeah.
But I think, again, not to go into too much detail, but as someone who grew up very religious and stopped going to church, I think the whole, I don't think it's no spoiler, it starts at the very beginning of Aisling's story, is that she is Irish, and so her family's Irish Catholic. She's not very actively Catholic, but her boyfriend wants her to convert to Judaism in like a proper, like, serious way. So I think that a lot of the ideas there just chimed. I've sort of grappled with a lot of, issues to do with how much your religion makes up your identity, and even if it's not a religion that you actively engage in, if it's your heritage and it's your family, it's very hard you're never really free of that in a sort of good and a bad way. So I think that, as always with novels, sometimes it's just personal stuff, isn't it? It just chimes. So I think there was an intensity there that I just really, Ruth Gilligan just wrote about the way that those issues intersect. It felt very true to me, even though actually the experience was very different to how I've experienced religion, but that was the story that really connected with me. But I did like Ruth's story, and I almost would have kind of like, I would have quite liked to read a whole kind of more straight novel about it.
A whole novel. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how she would have handled the sort of themes and subject matter differently if she had written it more as like a traditional sort of linear novel of just going from the beginning of her life to the end. But yeah, I think those like themes did like resonate really strongly, just personally, like thinking about like where you came from and where you grew up, and like as you get to be an adult, how you decide how much of those things about your identity growing up you want to integrate into your adult self, and how much you want to sort of cast off and say like, no, actually this is the kind of person I feel like I am. And I loved how Jennifer on her YouTube channel called Insert Literary Pun Here, I know, she does really great, really intelligent reviews. She talked about this book in a really interesting, in-depth way. She describes how, talking about these like issues of identity, and she says once you've folded yourself, even if you try to unfold that and go back to the way you thought of yourself before, there will always be a crease, a mark to show that you did that. And so the way that when we decide we want to change ourselves in a certain way, like how we can't quite go back to the person we were before.
Because I think that's really interesting, and I found the book, also I keep trying to avoid spoilers, but actually I think that we probably should just explicitly say it's supposed to be a book club, so
we're going to be talking about specific things.
Because I felt like I really loved the book. Do you know what? when it comes down to it, I feel like this is quite a confession to make. I like a happy ending. You know, I feel like it's not cool, but I like a happy ending. Well, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be everything tied up with both. But I did find this quite sad. And I think that the thing about, I love that, that idea that, you know, we remake ourselves and the creases are still there. And I think that, again, I don't want to get all like COD psychology about it, but I kind of feel like the only way that you can be happy is to kind of acknowledge those creases and make them part of you. And I felt like this is a book full of people who had all these creases but were kind of stymied by them and couldn't get past them, and it was a bad thing. And so I ended up feeling quite sad at the end of it. A lot of that is just personal preference.
And it's interesting. So I think other people like felt that way too. Like Diana on Goodreads commented how she felt of the like sadness of the story and the bleakness, and specifically about talking about the Jewish experience. She thought like, yes, all those like issues are there around like being Jewish, but then there's also like so much to celebrate and like joyous things about like being Jewish too, which she didn't feel were like quite like brought in the way that they possibly could have. But yeah, I think it you know, it's not an entirely like happy story. There's a lot of quite like bleak things happen. Although I'd like to point out some like things that I thought were really like funny and good about like I loved all the sort of literary allusions in the book. There's a lot about like James Joyce and Anne Wright. She's talking about these Irish children in classrooms, and they're given these school books, and on the front of the notebooks is James Joyce's tower, and she writes that there's a sketch of Martello Tower on the front as if to encourage every gobshite in the country to become the next James Bloody Joyce.
Because it's by no means, I would say that the overall feel of the book is quite melancholy, but it's by no means devoid. You know, it's full of wit and moments of light as well.
Yeah, humor and like beauty too.
It's not by
like
no means a depressing read. You know, you have your quirks as a reader, and there's a plot line where there's a house that's bombed and two people kind of basically lose each other through that, even though, again, this is a spoiler, but even though neither of them died, the other one thinks the other person has died. And I really find, again, this is just a personal thing, but I find plot devices where there's like, you know, someone like turns up to a cafe just as someone else has left, or someone dies before they get a chance to say what they really, like, I find them really hard to read. Like, there's something in me that just like, it's too much, like it's too sad, like my brain can't cope with those sort of plots. And it's not saying it's bad by any means, it like works as a narrative thing, but I just find that plot device really heartbreaking. You want there to be a moment where they're like walking down the street thinking they've lost the other person, then turn around and be like, there you are. Do you know what? I can forgive an awful lot of coincidences for that, to put those things back together. And I kind of, when that happened, I just wanted, even though I knew it wasn't headed this way, and even though it probably would have been a technically worse book if she'd done this, there was still a little bit of me that wanted there to be some sort of like really emotional, happy resolution. It's probably because of having like a deep-seated personal fear of like that happening to me. But I mean, it's like the hard thing. It's like, well, that's life. That happens a lot of the time, and But as like from a narrative perspective, I think it was exactly, it's not like I think it should have been different. So let us know what you think about what we've been talking about. I think one of the things that I really am fascinated by is how do you balance that relationship between your sort of technical reader brain and the kind of emotional reader. Yeah, the emotional reader that wants the things to be wrapped up in. Right, and do you ever feel like a pull between those two things where you know one thing is right narratively, but as a reader you kind of want something else like to happen? And do you feel that, and which books have made you feel that? Let us know in the comments below. I guess how did you feel about the sort of multiple narrative? Did you have a favourite? Did you have one that worked better than the other? How do you think, I'd also be good to know books that you think do that really well, where you don't kind of pine for different voices. Because it is a real challenge as a writer to find one that you can I mean, personally I find through reading Homegoing earlier this year, like I was so engaged with almost every story, even though she like went through so many different people's stories. We didn't even get to go back to them as well. You just got like snippets here and there of what happened to the characters, and sometimes you never knew. Right, so give us some recommendations of books that use kind of multiple narrators that you think work particularly well.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't read Nine Folds Make a Paper Swan yet, I hope you do read it. And once you do, come back and comment and let us know what you think.
And we have a multitude of ways that you can contact us, which we won't list here, but we'll put them all in the description box.
Yeah, if you click show more, I'll list the links to our Goodreads group and our hashtag and all that good stuff. So next we're going to talk about the book The Good Immigrant, edited by Nikesh Shukla. And this is an interesting collection of essays all about people from the UK talking about their experience as a BAME individual. And if you don't know, that stands for Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic. It's very much I think political book. It's making a political statement just in its title, saying The Good Immigrant, because immigration is such a hot political topic. A lot of these essays are sort of do have a sort of political slant to them, but I think more than, and all sort of politics aside, they're just really engaging stories about people's personal experiences and their struggles with identity, their struggles with being a racial minority in a largely white society. So I found that I just related personally to a lot of these experiences on a couple of different levels, because I myself am an immigrant to Britain, but a lot of people don't see me that way because I'm from America and I'm white. But I'm not counted in that category, and which really brings to the front that really this is a discussion about race. This isn't about immigration and jobs. This is wanting to keep out people who are other. So that really affected me. But also being a gay man and having these experiences and I think a lot of these essays, I think some people are probably tentative about starting this book because they think well, I know what is going to be said in this book about race, but actually there's a lot of surprising things that are said in this book and different slants that I hadn't really thought of before when reading this book and thinking about race and these different levels of self-consciousness that people are made to feel as a racial minority, and which I've definitely felt as a gay man of if I go to a wedding that's largely full of straight people, and this has actually happened to me before. I've gone to a wedding and been introduced, and then I said, oh, and this is my boyfriend, and this woman clocks oh, this is a gay couple, and so she sort of nervously turned to me and said I love Will and Grace. And just sort of great, okay, but there's an essay where somebody talks about being the only black person in the room and of a party, and a song comes on, and in the lyrics of the song uses the N-word, and the writer just feels everyone's eyes coming on them to lead is it okay if we sing along with this? Is that appropriate? And being made to feel this self-consciousness about this aspect of your identity when you don't necessarily think of yourself as standing out in that way really hit home for me.
It's quite a hard one to summarize, obviously, because it's a collection of essays by 21 different people.
Yeah, 21.
So we can't really give you much of a summary, and I think the nature of collections of this are obviously some of them, well, I think some of them work better than others.
Yeah, some of them are very
stylist,
academic. Some of them are very just intensely personal. You feel it's almost like a journal entry.
Right,
of them
and there's
talking
very
about their
different
experience.
styles, and it's not necessarily a book that you would sit down and read cover to cover either. It's one that you can kind of dip in and out.
Yeah, and that's something that Jennifer at Insert Literary Pun here said this is a mixed bag, as with any book of essays, and there'll be ones you'll connect with more, and there'll be ones you'll connect with less. I know I personally one of the first ones I went to was Riz Ahmed's essay, because he's one of the sexiest actors alive right now, and it's I think he's really hot, and so it was so wonderful reading this essay that not only is he very sexy man, but also his brain is so sexy. His essay was so moving, and I thought it was particularly powerful. He was talking about these stages of going through he was talking about his experiences as an actor going to auditions and obviously being classified as a racial minority, and then having to be put up for those roles, but then also having to go through security at the airport, and this like continuous effect of just from like traveling so much and having to go through security again and again, being asked the same questions, being constantly made to feel persecuted, it has this long-term effect where it like diminishes your like sense of self, makes you feel like an other, and I thought it was an interesting theme throughout the book. If you're gonna like try to find any connecting theme, quite a few of the essays are by actors, and so which has like a sort of peculiar resonance, because while these are performers, there's also a lot in about how you're made to feel like you have to perform your racial identity, because being a racial minority, you feel like you have to embody something about that race in a strange way, even though you don't necessarily feel any connection to it.
So this is the same one that you mentioned, the same essay, because I think one of my, it's called A Guide to Being Black, and it was one of my favourites, I think, both from in terms of content and writing style. Just the way that there's no one way to be anything. Everyone's stuff intersects in a different way.
And I thought it was particularly powerful how she described race in that essay as being both a performance and a permanence. So you're constantly made to feel like you're performing this aspect of your identity and changing it around to suit the social context you're in. But then at the same time, it's this a permanent part of yourself. So you're sort of like limited into how you can express that. It was sort of like made a like ongoing discussion throughout the essays about whether like this sense of your identity is a fixed thing or like a fluid thing. And like another like strong essay I thought by Wei Min Kan, which she calls Beyond Good Immigrants. She gave this powerful quote where she says, "We're not seen as human because we never get to be complex individuals. Our defining characteristic is generally our foreignness." And I think, that really like sums up how you're constantly made to feel like a foreign person even in your own country.
So one of my favourites was the essay by Darren Chetty, who's been a teacher. I used to be a school librarian in a secondary school, and I thought, and obviously now work in children's publishing a lot, and I think he talks a lot about the impact of seeing yourself in the stories around you and writing with children. And he'd set a class and exercise, and one child basically says stories are about white people. And it's a topic that obviously people have been grappling with for a long time, and there's campaigns, the We Need Diverse Books campaigns, but a lot of it really just boils down to how important it is that people children see themselves in the stories around them, and that stories and books are for them and about them. So I found that one really powerful.
I found it really heartbreaking to see these like children who felt like they couldn't see people who looked like them represented in a story.
Right, I think it's really easy to underestimate the simplicity of just the power of seeing yourself, and it makes a huge fundamental difference, particularly for children, to see themselves in the stories that they're consuming.
And these different like entertainment mediums. That was really strong in Daniel York Lowe's story too, when he was talking about when he was younger and like looking for representations of himself as an East Asian man on the screen, and the only person he could find was this wrestler who had a mask, who was supposed to be Japanese, but then eventually when the mask came out, it turned out that he wasn't even Japanese. So it's important for people to see themselves in stories and see themselves like represented in different and complex ways, because it's it's something that a lot of like writers I know grapple with. It's like if you put in characters who are races who are not yourselves, to not make that tokenism, to make them just an individual, and that could be part of the story. Their race could be part of the story, and it could just not be part of the story. It could just, that's who they are. So if you've read this book, what do you think? Did you have like were there particular essays that resonated with you more and that you connected with more, or did it bring up like themes that made you think about things in a way that you hadn't thought about them before? Let us know in the comments about that. I'd be really interested to hear what people's personal reactions are to some of these essays, because I think they bring up a lot of like personal feelings, because so many, like I said, so many of these essays are like really written from the heart, and so bring up a lot of emotions.
So that's sort of what we thought about these first two books, but really this is just kind of kicking off because we would like you to respond. We really want to talk to not just each other, much as we like talking to each other about books.
Do it
We'd like
all
to talk
day.
to other people too. So please do get in touch. As I said, we'll list all the ways you can get in touch with us below. And then we're going to announce the plan for the rest of the time, because several of you sort of pointed out that it's good for planning.
Yeah, what you're going to read next.
To not do it a month at a time. So the next two books are going to be An Unrestored Woman, which is the short story collection,
Book of short stories,
and The Arab of the Future, which is the graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
And we will hopefully we're aiming to have that
towards the end of August, beginning of September. That video should go up. Mm-hmm.
So those are the priorities to read. And again, please do, as you're reading, please do get in touch as you're reading them. And then the books to read during September are Your Heart is a Muscle the Size of a Fist and Under the Udala Trees. And that's the video that will go up sort of end of September, beginning of October. And then the last two books are Bone Gap, which is the YA novel, and All We Shall Know. And that's to read during October.
Yeah. So it's
So
end
that's
of
the
October,
plan, but
yeah.
we'll type that all out as well.
Yeah, that'll all be in the description for easy reference.
So we will see you at the end of August, beginning of September, to talk about An Unrestored Woman and The Arab of the Future.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Yeah, like I said, please comment below.
And thank you to everyone who read along and joined in. And
Yes.
keep going.
And thank you very much for hosting us. We've been filming this in Gaze the Word Bookshop, right in the heart in Bloomsbury. It's the friendliest bookshop in London. Please stop in and buy some books because it's wonderful.